Now we just talked about how to override several different components that can be captured in a feature module when you want to share that feature module across multiple sites. We did so using variable hook functions in order to override the values of those components without actually touching the feature module itself, so we are free to update the feature module code. Now, one other aspect of a Drupal site that we'll commonly want to override is the text in the interface. So for example, we might want to change this navigation to say something else. We might want to alter this submitted by here, or change this powered by Drupal down here at the bottom. Now there's different ways to go about editing each of these items. For example, we can actually change the title of this menu inside of the menu system, and then control that with features. And we could adjust this powered by Drupal by simply disabling the block where it displays and replacing it with our own. But all three of these items, plus a number of others in the interface, can all be adjusted by overriding a string. And there's a module that exists to help us do this called string overrides. Now, string overrides is a great module that allows you to make these modifications in the database. So through an interface, you specify what the original text is and what we're going to replace it with. The downside, though, is that those modifications aren't exportable into a features module. So we need to go about adjusting the interface text in a different way. Our approach is going to be changing some of the settings inside of our settings.php file. But the implication here is that since our settings.php file is site-specific, it hasn't been added to version control, and so we need to create a separate file to contain our modifications and then include that in the settings.php file. So let's go ahead and begin simple with this navigation link. Now the other two examples we pointed out, this submitted by and the powered by Drupal at the bottom, are a little bit more complex. This one, because it contains variables. It contains the name of the user that created this content and a date. So the way we translate this text is going to be a little bit different and a little bit more complex. And how we find this text is going to be a little bit more tricky. So we'll come back to that in just a little bit after we know how to override text inside of our settings.php file. So let's go ahead and open up our settings.php file. I'm going to navigate to our site, and I'm going to collapse the all folder here and expand default and open up settings.php. Now this file is pretty extensive, so let's do a search for locale. That's Locale. I'm going to click Find Next, and that jumps us to this string override section. And it says in order to override specific strings on your site with or without enabling locale module, add an entry to this list. And then it has some values that are commented out here. Let's go ahead and uncomment these by removing the hashtags from each line. And we'll go ahead and replace this first item here with navigation, which again is the text of our menu title here. And we're going to replace this with site menu. And let's save it. Now you may have to change permissions on this file in order to modify it. In Komodo, the editor I'm using, I can simply use force save. I'm going to jump back to the browser and refresh the page. And you see now, instead of navigation here, it says site menu.